Hello, my lovelies! Ever wonder why some reef fish look like underwater Olympians while others look like they're just getting by? 9 times out of 10, it's what and how you feed. Tonight, we're unpacking the entire reef menu. Pellets, flakes, freeze-dried cubes, sheets of nori, wriggling live foods, chopped fresh seafood, and the big staple, frozen food. By the end, you'll know which option fuels color, growth, and immunity, and which ones are basically junk food with a shiny label. We'll hit each food type with 3 rapid-fire questions: what it is, what's in it, and what you should use it for. Then I'll finish with 5 pro tips that you might not have heard before that can instantly boost feeding responses. Let's get started. All right, let's start with pelleted food. These are compressed micronutrient bombs, proteins, lipids, and vitamins baked into tiny little spheres. Huge pro: zero mess, automatic feeder friendly, long shelf life. Cons: cheaper brands pad protein with wheat gluten and soy. Check the first 3 ingredients. Look for 45% or higher crude protein, 10% or higher marine fat, and whole fish meal on the label. Soak a quality pellet for 10 seconds in a tank water, plus a drop of amino acids first if you have time. Fish will strike faster and the pellet sinks slower, giving shy feeders a chance to get at them. Next up are flake food. Flakes are steamed sheets that are then shattered into confetti. Great for surface feeders like chromies and anthias, and perfect for broadcast feeding larvae. Downside: they oxidize really fast. Use a small jar, keep the bulk in the freezer, and pinch only what's eaten in 30 seconds. Flakes often run lower fat than pellets, so supplement them with nori or frozen food to hit omega-3 goals. By themselves, they're just not nutritious enough. Another cool option are freeze-dried foods. Think about it like astronaut ice cream for fish. Mysis, krill, or copepods blasted dry under a vacuum. Pros: no refrigeration, parasites are killed, and it has a crunchy texture which can trigger picky eaters. Cons: bone-dry cubes soak up tank water and can swell in a fish's stomach. Always hydrate freeze-dried foods in vitamin-fortified RODI water for a minute before feeding. Something fish never seem to get enough of is nori, which are seaweed sheets. Pure macroalgae loaded with iodine and vitamins A and C. Essential roughage for tangs, rabbitfish, and herbivorous angels. So clip a quarter sheet and pull it after 2 hours so it doesn't rot. Make sure you're removing it from the tank. Pro tip: buy unseasoned sushi nori in bulk at an Asian market. It's cheaper and the ingredients list is literally one word: seaweed. Another amazing food option are live foods, but you need to be careful with what you select. Copepods and amphipods are really great options, but they can get expensive. Blackworms are often fed on freshwater tanks, and they're getting a little bit more popular in saltwater. I often use live brine shrimp when I start with a wild-caught fish and they're having issues eating. Unfortunately, nutritiously, they're only as good as what you gut load them. So feed live brine with omega-3 paste for 24 hours before you add them to your tank. The downside of live food can be the risk of introducing pests, higher costs, and you need separate culture gear if you're going to breed your own. One of my favorite things to do is make my own DIY seafood. I usually blend scallop, shrimp, mussels, and a little nori into a gel with no fillers, all protein. You control the garlic, vitamins, and binder. Unflavored gelatin works really well. Keep it in frozen flat in Ziploc bags or put it into a silicone ice cube tray. Warning: raw grocery seafood can carry Vibrio, so make sure you're rinsing in RODI and flash freeze for 24 hours before blending. My personal preference is frozen fish and coral foods. Frozen foods keep nutrients closer to what reef fish and corals eat in the wild because flash freezing locks everything in place before air, heat, or light can damage it. The rapid drop to sub-zero temperatures prevent the omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids and mysis, krill, and fish eggs from oxidizing. So the DHA and EPA that fuels vibrant coloration and strong immunity system stays biologically active. Heat processed pellets and flakes lose much of those fragile lipids and a good chunk of water-soluble vitamins like C and the entire B complex during extrusion and long shelf storage. But frozen cubes avoid the cooking step entirely, preserving vitamins almost intact. Proteins also remain in their native form. They're not denatured or cross-linked by high temperatures, making them easier for fish enzymes to digest and turning more of each bite into growth instead of waste. Even carotene pigment, the natural reds and yellows and oranges that power up fish and coral colors, stay protected inside intact cells until you thaw the food. In short, frozen fish food delivers fresher fats, robust vitamins, digestible proteins, and brighter pigments, nutrition that dry foods simply can't match. All right, well, there are a few cons when we look at frozen fish food. So number one is going to be cost. Frozen fish food is probably the most expensive option, especially when comparing it to like a pelleted or a flake food. Number two is going to be really, really messy. You do have to take it out of your freezer for every single feeding. And of course, then your hands start smelling like seafood, and that is just kind of gross, which if you haven't heard, we are working on that with our automatic frozen fish food feeder. We do have the R1 feeder coming out hopefully in a couple of weeks on our Indiegogo campaign if you want to check it out at mantasystems.net. And number three is going to be, of course, inconvenient. So every single time you have to take it out of the freezer, you do have to feed it, you have to thaw it, you have to store it. There's a little bit of a downside with that as well. Rinsing frozen food can help reduce the amount of excess nutrients, especially phosphates and nitrates that might come from the packing liquid. This is especially true for foods like PE mysis, which are incredibly nutritious but also come packed in a dense, rich solution that can spike your nutrient levels if you're feeding heavily or not skimming efficiently. However, when you rinse frozen food, especially something like mysis, brine, or blended reef blends, you're not just removing excess packing liquid, you're also washing away a lot of the tiny particulate matter. And here's the thing, that stuff isn't just waste. Those fine particles can be incredibly valuable, especially in a mixed reef tank. Corals, particularly LPS, softies, and non-photosynthetic species, often benefit from those suspended particles in the water column. They're small enough to be captured by polyps, feather dusters, sponges, tunicates, and all those tiny filter-feeding creatures we love to keep, but sometimes forget to feed directly. For example, when you feed something like a reef blend or enriched brine without rinsing, the tank gets a cloud of microparticles that can help broadcast feed your whole system. And that can support growth, polyp extension, and coloration in ways that target feeding alone might not accomplish. Even with some fish like anthias or mandarins, they're more likely to pick a suspended food that's drifting around. Another big plus, if you're feeding modest portions and your tank has decent nutrient export, things like a protein skimmer, refugium, or just even regular water changes, you might not see any nutrient spike at all. In fact, some reefers intentionally don't rinse because they're dosing nitrates and phosphates just to keep their nutrients detectable. So in those cases, the extra food particles actually help keep the system more balanced, not less. But at the end of the day, it's really about knowing your tank and what lives in it. If you're running a fish-only system with heavy feeding and minimal filtration, rinsing might help you keep things cleaner. But if you've got corals, inverts, and filter feeders that thrive on fine food particulates, not rinsing can actually be a source of nutrition, not just a source of nutrients. So it's not a one-size-fits-all answer. There are benefits to both approaches, and the best choice really depends on what you're keeping and how your system is set up. Now let's go through my quick pro tips. Number one, for pelleted food, make sure you're soaking a single serving in a shot glass of water, plus make sure you're always adding amino acids. The pelleted by themselves are not nutritious enough. Number two, make sure you're scoring your nori. Use scissors to make quick vertical cuts halfway up the sheet before clipping it to the glass. Tangs and rabbitfish tear off perfect bite-sized tabs, and the sheet stays secured and nothing drifts into the overflow. Number three, make sure you gut load your live food. Feed live brine shrimp or copepods a high EPA algae paste for 24 hours before adding them to the tank. The enriched prey passes the omega-3 straight up the food chain, turning your treat into a powerhouse supplement. And number four, make sure you're rehydrating your freeze-dried food. Add it to a little bit of your tank water and then pinch out any extra water. Add it to your tank and it will slowly sink, which is going to be a lot more appealing to any fish in your system. Number five, make sure you're paying attention to expiration dates. It is very important that we're not feeding expired food to our beautiful fish and corals. And that's the crash course on feeding options. If you want the full deep dive, head over to mantasystems.net and read the complete article. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you'll be aware of any new videos that we post. Thanks for watching, and as always, happy reefing.